At the end of the day, I have one goal when I took this job. One goal is to bring a Super Bowl here to Jacksonville. To have the Lombardi Trophy in our building, meaning we won the whole thing. And that's my goal. That's what I want for this organization. I want us to be viewed as the premier organization in the NFL in everything we do on the field, in this building. I think that's the standard, and that's my only goal.
Welcome into a new venture we're starting on Jaguars Media. We're calling it the EVPodcast. As you can imagine from the title, the podcast is Executive Vice President of Football Operations, long title there, Tony Boselli. And Tony, first of all, thanks for doing this. I think I look forward to doing this as a way to have fans get to know your insight, football on, off the field. Thanks for doing it.
No, I'm looking forward to it. This will be great. It'll be good to kind of get caught up on a regular basis and make sure our fans understand how we're thinking about things and how we're going to do things here at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the plan to build a winning culture, winning organization, and ultimately reach the goal that we all have, and that's to win a Super Bowl.
Have you had a chance to come up for air and realize this is real yet?
Yeah, this weekend was the first time getting back from the Combine. This was the first time since I took the role. I guess my official start date was February 1st, but was working a little bit before that. This was the first time that I'd spent a couple days not doing a lot of Jaguar stuff. Got back. I played golf for the first time on Saturday morning. That was nice. That was good to get out there. And then took some time at the house just to get a lay of the land again, because it was a sprint once I took the job. But as I've told everyone, John, I mean, and you know this, it's not work if you love doing it.
Right.
And it has not felt like one day of work yet.
And while you're on that topic, I know when we talked a little beforehand, talk about Angie's support so far.
Yeah.
That had to be a big thing. It was a lifestyle choice.
It was. Well, and it was interesting because most people probably don't know, because the most interaction they had with me was what I did with the Jaguars as far as on game day, doing the radio, and then the show on Monday night. But what they probably didn't know, I was running a company in San Francisco that entire time. So it was already a heavy work schedule, a lot of travel. The good thing was when I was home working from the house, so I got to spend more time with Angie and our one daughter, Ansley, who's left at the house. This is a little bit different. So different work hours, leaving every day, and obviously she knows me. And as we talked about it when Shad presented the opportunity, which was an amazing opportunity and really a dream come true, first person I talked to was her, because it was going to change a little bit, kind of our cadence as a family. And now you're married to the NFL calendar. Right. That's just the way it works in the NFL. And she also knew that she's like, listen, you're going to go over the top in everything you do. Because, yeah, I mean, it's shocking for anyone who knows me. So we sat down, had a long conversation, and so she was all in, because, listen, we'll be married 30 years this year. And there's nothing that happens in that household unless her and I are on the same page. It's just how we've operated our entire lives, our whole married lives. And so her being bought in and being as excited as I was about it was important for me.
Probably my favorite quote that I've heard about you since all this started was when Shad said he was born to do this. And that really resonated. I've thought that for a couple of years in our conversations, just different stuff. I'm curious if you feel that way. I mean, obviously Hall of Fame left tackle, born to play football.
Yeah.
But this feels, it's always just felt right to me.
So I've had a lot of jobs in my life, and jobs I loved. I've been in healthcare for a decade plus now, running companies, and enjoyed every second of it. But this is the second job that doesn't feel like a job. The first one was a player. Right. And obviously that was my dream growing up, playing in the NFL. This is the second dream job that I've ever had. And I hope I was born to do it. I hope Shad's right, because that means that we're going to have success, and that I can do my role effectively, which is just a piece of the puzzle. Obviously, Liam is our head coach, is critical, because all that matters is, you've heard me say this, and you'll hear me continue to say this, is all that matters is what happens on the grass, because that's ultimately what we're all defined by. And which I love about the NFL. It's very immediate response. Like Sunday happens, you had success or not. End of season, you're evaluated based on wins and losses. And ultimately, only one team gets to really feel like, hey, we were successful this year. And adding Liam and then James over the last week as the GM, you got two guys there that I have supreme confidence in, that they're going to help lead this organization to where we want it to be. And both have obviously significant roles, and I have my role to support and to make sure that we continue to do things the right way as an organization. And the three of us will be responsible for that and figuring this thing out and making sure we're creating a winning culture, a winning team, and doing things the right way.
So Jaguars happy hour with Pete Prisco was all work.
That was work. That was work. If you know Pete, spending any time with Pete's work. I was at the Combine with him. It was work. No. Pete's a great friend. I'll miss that. It was one of my favorite things I did every week during the season is 2 hours with Pete and JP and kind of reviewing the game and talking about the state of the organization from our perspective. It was a different perspective I had, though.
Sure.
Because I was outside the building in a lot of respects, as it should be. I mean, that role. I was part of the media, internal media, but still the media. And what we did there was evaluate what we saw on the field and what we knew. And kind of what I like to say is we called balls and strikes from the stands.
Right.
I am now in a much different role, have different responsibilities, and I think as our fans tune into this and other opportunities to hear us talk about what we're doing with the organization, obviously it's going to be through the lens of understanding it from a different perspective now and what we're trying to achieve. So, but still want to communicate to our fans of what we're doing and how we think about things and how decisions are made and why we make certain decisions.
Right. Hopefully this forum will be able to do that a little bit. Impossible question because there's too many details, but as well as possible, outline the process from maybe that last Jaguars happy hour until EVP.
Yeah.
I know it's got to be thumbnail because conversations, but
I was going to say, how long is the podcast?
Well,
are we going to do a 3-hour, Joe Rogan type podcast here? Or is this gonna, because it's a long story.
Sure.
And I think it really goes back to, it's been in the, I don't want to say it's been in the work for years, but Shad and I have had different conversations over the years. And I wanted to always play the role that Shad, Mark Lamping, the leadership of this organization felt I could play to best help us move the ball down the field. And so I've had a great relationship with Shad. He's someone I respect immensely. I mean, obviously everyone knows the story of how he got to where he is. And I felt like I've always felt like I could learn a lot from him. And so spending time with him, with Mark Lamping, was always really important to me. And then when this opportunity came, it kind of happened after the last game of the season against the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
When that was done, and Shad had made the decision that he was going to move on from Doug Peterson and that staff, him and I had a conversation. He asked me, he said, hey, I'm thinking about this as a possible role. Let's talk about it after the coaching search gets done, and would you help kind of behind the scenes initially in the coaching search? And I said, absolutely, anything I can do to help. And so we went through that process, and I think everyone knows the story by now. I think it was a Tuesday morning. It came out that Liam wasn't going to come in for the in-person interview. A couple hours later or so, it was announced that Shad had decided to part ways with Trent Baalke. And at that point, I became more involved in the coaching search. And we went through it, and we've talked about this at length about Liam. And it was clear to me that Liam was the right guy to lead this team, without a doubt. And obviously that's how Shad felt and the rest of the group that was going part of that process. After that, and after the press conference that Monday, Shad gave me a call and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about, Executive Vice President of Football Operations. We went through the specifics of the role, with the relationship, all the terms and all that kind of stuff, which was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And when he called me, I sat and listened, and obviously, there's a part of you that just wants to say yes right away.
Sure.
But the other part of me said, I have a responsibility to this company I'm running. We just got done raising a bunch of money from a couple of large venture capitalist firms, and I also needed to talk to my wife. So I asked Shad, I go, can I have 24 hours to kind of talk about this? And he, typical Shad, was gracious and said, absolutely, let's talk tomorrow. So had the conversation on the business side with the CEO and founder of the company, one of the board members, and then had a long conversation with Angie. And then the next day called Shad and said, let's do it.
Fantastic.
And that kind of kicked off the process. And it was kind of hit the ground running immediately.
Well, you're already doing it in a way.
Yeah, I was already doing some of it, and then now it was official, so started working with Liam. And, you get a sense of who people really are, because it's one thing to say, talk about communication and collaboration in an interview, but you could see immediately that's really who Liam is. And brought me in and helped wherever I could in him getting his coaching staff put together. He was doing a great job. I think he put together a world-class coaching staff. You know how hard that is for a first-time coach to get that, because it's not like you just get to pick whoever you want.
Well, because it's fast and you're trying to deal with contracts.
Guys are under contracts and you have to ask permission. I mean, it's a tough process, and Liam did a great job there. But then we immediately went into the GM search. And that GM search, we wanted to do that the right way.
You had a process for that.
Big process. Give a lot of credit to Mark Lamping. He really, because I was brand new in the role, he had already been thinking about it. He kind of brought me into the loop how they were thinking about it, got my input. I thought they pretty much had it ticked and tied really tightly, really good process. And all of a sudden, you're looking at 50 hours of interviews.
Right.
30 of them.
And that's just the interviews. That's not the talking afterward.
That's not the talking after. That's not the background. That's, we were still trying to get some of the final coaches done. So you're juggling a lot of people's times and calendars, and it's a lot of work. So we went through that process virtual first. We had a number of people involved in that. I thought it was it was done well and got a lot of people's buy-in, which is important for me. And then we did the in-person where Shad came in, and we had 5 in-person, and that was an intense few days. 4-hour interviews, you're diving deep. And we got through that. Next thing you know, at the Combine. I mean, and you look up and it's March.
Right.
I'm like, well, that was a fast month. I mean, here we go.
Now you get to relax during free agency. So.
Yeah, I mean, nothing big coming up, just free agency coming up, and everyone's running around trying to get that. We have, you have to look at your roster first and foremost.
Right.
And then you have to overlay, none of these things can be done in a vacuum. At least I don't believe if you want to be successful. So you have to look at current roster, what's going to be available in free agency, which is an ever-moving target because you have guys who are going to get released at the league year. But you want to make sure you marry that up with what's in the draft.
Sure.
And where's the draft deep? What's your draft strategy? What kind of gaps and holes do you want to fill? And so there's a lot that goes into it, and you got to kind of be very coordinated and strategic as you think through it.
Your role right now, do you see it evolving, changing over time in terms of influence on the field, in terms of just the conversations? I assume as James and Liam get more comfortable, you guys will know what each part needs to do. Yeah,
I mean, I think it'll always evolve.
Right.
I have no idea today what that means, to be quite honest. I mean, I think it's what Shad has laid out and what we have all kind of stacked hands on is very clear. I mean, Liam is the head football coach. While all 3 of us are, all report to Shad, as I like to say, is we're going to be head coach centric. And so Liam's kind of call it first among equals. But he's responsible for what happens on the grass. His staff, setting the culture. He's going to be the voice of this building. And that's a non-negotiable. Obviously, James is the GM. Player acquisition, player disposal. So think of that as free agency, college draft, trades, cuts, all those things. And obviously working very tightly with the head coach and understanding, because you got to make sure you understand how the type of football that Liam wants to play. And Grant is OC and Camp is our D coordinator. And so that'll be a very close collaboration. And then my job is overseeing all the supporting staff.
Right.
And so, and James and I have talked about it. Our job together is to make sure Liam and his staff and our players have everything they need to be successful, because it goes back to the main thing, and that's on the field. And I think the simplest way, without getting into a bunch of minutia, to view me and my role is I'm the offensive lineman. And that's what I've always been at this organization. My job is to block, protect the quarterback, open up holes, and to help move the ball down the field so that somebody else can spike in the end zone and have success. And that's how we're going to approach this, everything we do. The 3 of us will sit down and talk through big strategic decisions and everything else. But I have the utmost confidence in James to build our roster and the utmost confidence in Liam to build a winning football team and call ball plays on Sunday.
As in a few sentences, what about Liam do you love?
Well, let's start with the X's and O's. I mean, just turn on the tape and look what he's done everywhere he's been, and highlighted last year. Top 5 offense, top 5 in rushing, top 5 in passing. And what people forget, probably I think it was 6 or 7 games, he didn't have 2 of the best receivers in football, and he was still effective.
Personnel change.
Big personnel change. Did it with a rookie running back, really a rookie center, rebuilt that offensive line. They were 32nd in the league the year before in rushing. Just an outstanding job coaching. So that's on the offensive side, but being a head coach is more than that. Mm-hmm. And so I think what jumped out at me during the interview and has been confirmed is just the overall leadership that he possesses, his ability to communicate.
And that's the job more than play call.
And that is the job. And he has the ability, he has strong convictions of how he wants it to look. He's able to communicate that clearly and very concisely, which is really important. And he has a presence about him. And, sometimes those leadership qualities you just don't know until you see him, and they're the intangibles. And he has that ability. So I think, and then if you kind of wrap that all up with a lot of energy. I mean, this is a guy who has some energy now. He's going to go. And so I'm really excited with what he's going to be able to do for this organization.
Same question about James.
Well, Liam and I joked around. He raised the IQ of the front office quite a bit. Now, some would say with me in there, it's a low bar, but at least he raised it. He not only has a very high IQ, he has what I would say is a very high EQ. His understanding how to communicate, how to bring people along is really impressive. And I think you really got that in the virtual interviews. I was like, okay, this is a smart individual, and this is a guy who knows how to communicate and build teams. It was clear about that. What really was impressive during the in-person was his evaluation of the roster. Okay. He's a real talent evaluator.
Okay. So stuff he was saying lined up with what you had been seeing.
Wow. I mean, just like you can see why the Rams have had success the last couple of years, is him leading the college draft process for them, and then him taking us through and how he thinks about it. He has a very high capacity to take in a lot of different information, correlate that information, make sense of it, and then kind of deliver it and make decisions based on it. And
that's about as key a thing for a GM as you can have, because you have to communicate it all.
That's exactly right. It's not enough just to be adept in evaluating.
Right.
But now how do you take how do you take that information and communicate it to the rest of the constituents in the building?
Because there's a lot of constituents.
Right. And he does a great job. So I could not be more excited about where we sit today. And listen, John, you've been around the league for a long time. You're not going to win any games today, but you sure can lose some games. Mm-hmm. We're sitting here in March, call this phase 1 of this journey we're on, and I think we've won phase 1. And that's great, but it doesn't mean you're going to have success.
Sure.
And I think what we want to do this offseason is continue to win each phase of this journey, so that when we get on the grass, we are ready to go execute and have success. And we don't want to do anything that puts us behind the 8 ball. And I think so far we've done a great job. A lot of credit to both James and Liam jumping into the deep end right away and getting to work immediately.
Can you feel there was so much talk at the Combine about the synergy? Talked about the North Star of the Rams. In fact, they'd been around each other and around the same thing. Do you feel that? And if so, is there an example of how you feel it?
I mean, I think one of the things that's been good is there's a little bit, they're comfortable because they had a relationship before, but at the same time, in completely different roles when they knew each other before.
Sure.
I mean, Liam was the OC, started off as a position coach, came back as the OC. James has had several roles in the organization. I can't tell you exactly what stage he was at when Liam was there.
Yeah, I think he was director of scouting strategy, so he was close but not the guy.
That's exactly right. So that's one relationship when they were in the Rams. This is a completely different relationship now. Now the three of us are in this together.
Right.
And so it's really a marriage. And so there's going to be a learning curve. Listen, the key is that we need to build a really strong relationships with each other. And I said this in the press conference, and great relationships are built on trust. And the only way you establish those type of relationships is it takes time. Mm-hmm. And you got to go through the fire together, and you got to have those hard conversations. You have to, Make sure you're not getting into a situation where it's a bunch of groupthink. Everyone's agreeing to agree.
Right.
I don't think that's going to be an issue, knowing Liam and James, and I know me.
Yeah.
Not a lot of.
That big groupthink guy.
Not a big groupthink guy. Not afraid to share an opinion. But that's going to take time. We're going to have to develop that. We're going to have to strengthen those relationships, which we will. We're all committed to it. And ultimately, no matter what I say today, the proof is going to be in the pudding. I mean, we got to go execute. We got to go show, first and foremost, Shad, that he has trusted us to do this. We got to go prove to him that he made the right bet in the three of us. And then ultimately, we got to prove it to the whole organization, our players, and at the end of the day, our fans and our sponsors and our partners, that when they come to games at Everbank or they tune into a road game, that they see a product they're proud of, and that this is a team that's going to be, tough, smart, disciplined, going to play the game the right way, and that's what we plan on building.
Quick final two. Any thoughts from the combine? It was your first time since you went as a player, right?
No, I went one other time. The first year Tom was here, I think it was 2017.
Okay,
I think that was the first year.
Yeah,
I went for a few days around the offensive line.
Okay, that's right.
But never in this role, obviously, or in this. It was much different. It was good. I thought our team did a great job. I was really proud of the whole organization, how they represented us at the combine, whether that's from the production team and you guys. I thought that was really well done. I think our scouts were prepared. Our coaches came in. We got a lot of work done. We treated it as a work week.
Sure.
So we started through free agency. So I was really pleased overall with the effort and how everyone was prepared, and we got things done. It was good. Overall, I think we accomplished what we wanted to, and that's a positive.
Without giving away anything, because you won't, the next week prepping for free agency, and then anything fans can expect in free agency, not specifics, but active, passive, how would you sort of preview that?
I think the way I would think about everything we're going to do is we're going to make decisions that make us a better football team. And whether that's super active in free agency or not, I think that's going to be a year-to-year thing. I don't think there's an overall philosophy saying, hey, we're not going to be active in free agency, or we're going to spend every dollar we can in free agency. That's not. I think that's the wrong way to approach it. The right way to approach free agency and the college draft is making decisions that makes you better on the field.
Right.
And I think that commitment you have from us as a leadership team is every decision we make, is it good for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and does it help us win football games? If it doesn't do those two things, why are we doing it? And so that's our approach to free agency. We're gonna attack free agency. We're gonna get after it. We'll compete. Listen, and I think most people know this. You can have the greatest plan, and you can plan out and have all these great ideas going into free agency. It's a little bit of the wild, wild west, because the players.
First 3 hours, it can change a lot.
The players get to choose what they want to do too.
Right.
So you can offer a great deal, and you think, hey, we want X player, and we got this great plan for them, and man, it's Jacksonville, it's Florida, it's this money, and all the stuff that goes into it. And they can look at you and say, I'm good. I'm going to go to.
That's great. I'm going to Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to Seattle. I'm going to go to the Rams, or I'm going to go to Baltimore, wherever they go. So, but we will have a very good plan. And we've started working on that last week. We'll continue this week, and we'll go in. We'll be ready to execute, and we'll go compete and try to get the guys we want. And we'll. But I think for the fans, I'd worry less about whether it's early, late, big money, not a big money.
They're going to worry if it's not early.
They shouldn't, though. You got to give us some time. Have confidence that what we are doing, we view as the best for this organization to win football games, because that's all that matters. As if you're a fan listening to this right now, all you care about at the end of the day is having success and winning. Don't get hung up on whether we won the offseason or not. Like, they should all know that we plan on winning every phase. But how we judge winning and losing might be a little bit different, because we're working with more information, and we have a very specific plan we're trying to execute against. And we can't share all that with everybody, because then we're at a competitive disadvantage in the league. So, but know that we are organized, we're ready to go, and we're going to get after it come free agency in our way, and we're going to do it the right way.
The last segment, because I'm a clever guy who works with words, Tony.
Yes.
You know me
you are clever. I've read the Ozone. I mean, you're very clever.
Well, the last thing we're going to do We're calling it the Bo Zone, and it gives you a chance to answer the questions.
Okay, as long as it's not the bozo.
Well, it's the Bo Zone with the bozo asking questions. How about that?
That's fair.
And before you were EVP, I would have called you the bozo,
Yes.
but not anymore.
Thank you. Thank you for the respect. I know behind closed doors that's not the case, but
that's a little bit
publicly
more
I appreciate it.
JK from New York and Fernandina Beach writes, and this is sort of a softball for you, your first one. Is Tony Boselli the left tackle of the Jags football operation? And I think you already answered the question.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
I think that's how I view it. I mean, at the end of the day, I have one goal when I took this job. One goal is to bring a Super Bowl here to Jacksonville, to have the Lombardi Trophy in our building, meaning we won the whole thing, and that's my goal. That's what I want for this organization. I want us to be viewed as the premier organization in the NFL in everything we do on the field, in this building. I think that's the standard, and that's my only goal.
Michael from Orange Park, Florida writes, Zone. You recently said it will take 2 or 3 years to get to the level of the Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles because there's still roster building to be done. Why don't you ask one of the new leaders if they agree with that? Well, I thought since you're one of the new leaders. Yeah. And to preface, what I meant was getting to a Super Bowl level. And again, curious how you see it.
Yeah, I'm less concerned about the time frame because I think when you put time frames on it, you almost set yourself up for both disappointment, but kind of give yourself maybe an easy way out. Because to me, it's like what we should be worried about is 2025. And the goal every year is to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
I mean, that's how we're approaching it. Now, whether we're going to win the Super Bowl this year or next year or the year after, I have no idea. There's so many things that go into it. We haven't even started free agency. We have the draft. We haven't got our players back here. Liam and our staff are just starting to do the work. I mean, they've been at it since they got hired, but, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. And then in the NFL, you never know what's going to happen. Guys get hurt, opportunities come, players peak at certain times, and out of nowhere you're sitting there in the playoffs and you have a chance. I mean, I don't think anyone in '96 thought we were going to be a team compete and go to the Super Bowl.
Correct.
And we were, in the red zone, 5 minutes away from tying it up and possibly sending it to overtime. And so, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know this is that's what we're competing for, and that's what we're striving for, and that's how we're going to make decisions here. So, time frame, I have no idea.
Tony, I appreciate you doing this. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be great things for the fans. Thank you very much for doing the EVP podcast.
Thank you, Ozone. I appreciate it.